So what's going on, guys? I'm Blackout's Amazing. Welcome back to another video. Welcome back to another Zombies Q&A on the channel, the series where I take your questions from the comment section below to do the zombie storyline, Easter eggs, and I answer them. As always, if you go on to enjoy today's video, don't forget to drop a like rating. Make sure you are subscribed to stay up to date with the latest videos. But let's get into it. Here we go, and enjoy. So the first question of the day says, who is the demon voice we hear in Outbreak? Now I believe you're talking about the holdout mission, the one where you have to blow up the giant Ethereum crystal and also survive on the Dark Aether for a certain amount of time. While you're doing this mission, there is a voice that speaks to you, and he first begins talking when you approach the crystal.
We belong in your world. Do not be afraid. We mean you no harm. Bring them to the Aether.
So as you just heard, when Requiem approached the giant Ethereum crystal, this voice says things like, "We belong in your world, let us in, we mean you no harm, do not be afraid." And then when Requiem plant the bomb on the crystal to blow it up, the voice says, "Bring them to the Aether," and we are teleported to the Dark Aether. While trapped in there, the team have to survive against the undead for a certain amount of time until the bombs destroy the Ethereum crystal. But whilst trapped in here, the voice continues to talk to you and will say things like this.
You cannot withstand our fury. You will torment us no more. We will not be defied.
He says, you cannot withstand our fury, you will torment us no more, and just as the crystal is destroyed and Requiem are returned back to the normal world, the voice says, we will not be defied. But the question is, who's talking? Is this the announcer in Cold War Zombies? The same voice that we hear speak when we get things such as an insta-kill, a nuke, double points, max ammo? Because if you listen to them quotes, it does sound like the same person.
Fetch me their souls. Bye-bye. Bonus points. Double points. Kaboom!
Who could this be? If we take a look back at the announcer in old Zombies games, BO321 World at War, we've had quite a few different announcers. First off, we had Samantha back in BO War and World at 1 when she was in control of the zombies. We then had Richtofen back in BO2 when he was in control of the zombies. In BO3 and 4, we don't know who the announcer was. We do for a couple maps like Alpha Omega, it was the Avogadro speaking then. But for the most part in BO3 and 4, we don't know who was controlling the zombies, because from Samantha and Richtofen, it seems like whoever's in control is the announcer. And so, going back to Cold War, could this person announcing in this game be controlling the undead? The way he's talking, saying things like, we will not be defied, and how he says, bring them to the Dark Aether, it sounds like this voice is giving orders. He's telling them to bring Requiem to the Dark Aether. The way he speaks makes it sound like he's in control of all of the creatures within the Dark Aether, the undead and everything that resides within there, possibly even the Elder Gods. Is he higher than them in terms of ranking? Does this person, in fact we don't even know if it's a person, it could be some type of creature, but is it in control of everything within the Dark Aether? If we again go back to the old zombie story, I guess you could say it was the Shadow Man who was the leader of the creatures from the Dark Aether, which were the Apothecans. But we now know in Cold War, Dr. Monty is trapped inside of there as well. He is almost on the same level as the Shadow Man, if not more powerful. So could this be him talking? Could this be the one trapped inside of the Dark Aether? I don't know, but I think there's still a lot we have to learn about it, but maybe somewhere later on down the line we'll come face to face with him. The next question says, there is a piece of intel in Season 2 from Fedorov that you missed. Can you explain what he's talking about? So I think I know what you're talking about. The other day I did a video on the Crooked Man, where I covered all of the Season 2 intel for Outbreak and Firebase C. However, there was one I missed, which is an audio log from a lost soul called Fedorov. This is, like many others, a person trapped within the Dark Aether. However, his experience and what he witnesses is super interesting.
Fedorov, Omega Group. We have been reassigned from Ethereum mining duties. That task now falls to vermin, enemies of the state. But now they expect us to map the dark Aether. That is what Pack calls this place. I would like to see him try to survey this madness. I have seen things out here. Unspeakable things. And today, push my... Usually, large groups of the infected are chaotic, mindless mobs, but today, I found hundreds of them strangely grouped. And their clothing... Were they uniforms? I dared not get too close, but they looked like... No, that cannot be right. It surely cannot be. This place, it plays tricks on you. I just need to get some sleep.
So, as you just heard, Fedorov worked for the Omega Group. He was sent into the Dark Aether originally to mine Ethereum. He was then reassigned to map out the Dark Aether, but during his time in there, he says he's seen many things, unspeakable things. He goes on to say, usually large groups of the infected are chaotic, mindless mobs, but today I found hundreds of them strangely grouped, and their clothing, were their uniforms. I dared not to get too close, but they looked like... No, that cannot be. It surely cannot be. This place, it plays tricks on you. I just need to get some sleep. So what was different to his experience of the Dark Aether compared to others is he saw a large group of zombies, hundreds of them together, whereas usually they just split up and mindlessly roam the Dark Aether. He saw a horde of hundreds of them grouped together. And when he goes on to describe them, he says they're wearing uniforms. He dared not to get too close, but there was something about what they were wearing that surprised him. He says, no, that cannot be right. Surely it cannot be. What uniforms are these zombies wearing? And the only thing that makes sense, the only thing that could have surprised Fedorov is the zombies were wearing Nazi uniforms. Remember that this takes place during the Cold War in the 1980s, so if he was to see Nazi uniforms during the 80s, of course he's going to be surprised. He would have thought the Nazis lost the war 40 years back, but to now see them existing in the Dark Aether, I think that'd surprise anyone. And what's even more shocking is, there's not only one of them, there's not the odd one here and there roaming around. He saw hundreds of them grouped together. Why would this be? Well, if we go back to Die Maschine, the whole point of that story revolved around Hitler wanting to use the Dark Aether to help the Nazis win the war. Could it be that part of his secret plan was to send Nazis in the Dark Aether? He knew the war was almost over, and so, in a last-ditch attempt to carry on, he sent Nazi soldiers into the Dark Aether where they were to regroup again, and perhaps one day, when they have a big enough horde, a big enough army, they will escape the Dark Aether and wage a new war. The next question says, if everything changes in the Dark Aether, does that mean that the fire-based sea monsters could have been transformed into Margwars? So I think what you're saying is, do the apothecants that we've seen previously, like the Margwars, the parasites, the meatballs as we call them, the Furies, the Elder Gods, although we still have Elder Gods in the new Cold War Zombie storyline, they just look differently to the Elder Gods that we are used to. So do all of those creatures still exist? Are there still Margwars in the Dark Aether? It's a difficult one to answer because, as you say, the Dark Aether changes things depending on how long you are trapped in there. But also, Cold War Zombies begins 20 years after the end of Black Ops 4 Tag der Toten, and also time in the Dark Aether works differently. It is a lot faster. 3 days in reality could relate to 3 weeks or 3 months in the Dark Aether. We don't know the exact difference. Another thing that should be noted is the apothecants were actually once keepers. They looked like this before they became trapped in the Dark Aether, where over time they changed and evolved and transformed into things like the Margwar. Whereas the creatures that we see in Cold War Zombies that come from the Dark Aether, like the Mimics for example, or the Megatons, they were once humans. The apothecants, the Margwars, weren't, they were keepers. Does that mean that the Margwars still don't exist inside of the Dark Aether? Is there a cut-off point as to how far you can evolve? Maybe the Margwars have reached that point, and the Dark Aether can't change them any further. At the end of the BO4 storyline, they were banished to the Dark Aether, so we can assume they still existed during that time, but this is 20 years later, and that's not taking into account how much faster time is in the Dark Aether. All of the apothecants could have just died off. There could still be some alive. We don't know. So guys, there we go, that is it. That is all I have for you for today's video. As always, hopefully you have enjoyed. If you have, you know what to do. Drop a like rating. Make sure you are subscribed to stay up to date with the latest videos on the channel. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And as always, I will see you in the next video. Until then, goodbye.